Hello and welcome to the Dire Gentleman channel. I'm Gus Zagarella.
And I'm Henry Galley, aka The Other One. And this is our probably flagship series, Two Professional Writers, where Gus and I, a pair of writers who get paid for it, talk about advice.
Yep, and boy oh boy, does advice on the internet range from really good to okay to, oh, don't touch that one.
You're goddamn right. We've done everything from the richest man in the world to the poorest man in the world in terms of bitches. Chuck Wendick.
Chuck Wendick.
That was so mean.
That was the most brutal thing that you could have said. But it's we do this regardless of the truth of that statement. I don't know what his life is like. we out here looking for internet writing advice, and we, as two people who get paid to do it, who have a show that's on its second season. Funnily enough, the reason why we haven't been doing videos like this for a while is because we've been working on that second season. It's been very rewarding, very fun.
Less is more, we should clarify. Go check it out if you have. If you're a fan of Dire Gentleman, though, and you haven't checked it out by this point, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah, our it's season 2 of our show, Loki, that we're writers for.
God, I wouldn't put my name to that.
Man.
Anyway, so today we're
No.
doing a kind of interesting thing of, rather than taking advice from an individual, we're taking advice from a collection of individuals on a platform. As you've seen from the title, in this case, it's Tumblr writing advice. Neither myself nor Gus have actually gathered the material on this. Meg Malloy Tootin, my partner and friend of the show, collected all the advice from this and was just kind of instructed to get a grab bag of stuff, a kind of variable quality that's just easy to bounce off of. So this isn't going to be like a Tumblr hit piece or whatever, because we're adult men who don't get vaguely angry about the amorphous blobs of users on websites.
Yeah, exactly. If anyone started to shudder when the word Tumblr was uttered, I ask you to re-examine your soul and check it for fucking disease.
See if it is in line with your soul and your ethics.
And your ethics.
God.
Power!
Alright, are you ready to jump in?
I think the best thing about Tumblr is that, we're going to get a variety of different things, no matter what. So that's what I'm looking for in this. It's that variety. Some of these might be winners, some might be losers, but overall, I think that there's a greater possibility that one of these could be something that people could take forward into their own writing.
That's a big thing about Tumblr. It isn't a monolith. It's actually this huge collection of splintered ultra-specific communities, and that kind of ultra-specificity actually leads us in pretty nicely to some of these that Meg's written down here, because Meg started off by including some ones that are just really funny in how specific they are. We haven't included the body text here, but there was quite a long post that had the heading, "Want to have a female character cut off her hair but without the cliche," and then a many point list underneath it.
Oh my god.
Of how to do that.
Well, it's so funny because the example I think of immediately is Sakura from Naruto being grabbed by the hair by another female ninja and being like, your hair's so weak. You you obviously use conditioner because you aren't putting much effort into being a ninja. And she's like, I'll prove you wrong. And she cuts her hair off, but then she proceeds to get owned. So it's the point still stands.
To be honest, when I think of iconic haircutting scenes of female characters, unquestionably I think of the scene from Mulan where she's preparing to go and imitate her father, imitate someone from her family, so her ailing father doesn't have to go to war. But I don't know, I guess this is probably something that in all fairness, female audience members having more experience with actually getting haircuts probably have more groans seeing it dealt with in a cringeworthy way in fiction.
Exactly. And I think just for people who are very confused why this is even on here, the prevalence of female haircuts, I think there's a obvious sort of social connotation for short hair means stronger, long hair mean prissier, more precious, with more concerned with looks than functionality.
And we're not really the people who can go fully into that. But
No, but I will say in the modern day, there's been this kind of like online discourse trope of a lot of people just getting really mad at women who start the story with shorter hair because it just makes them feel a way, you know? And I don't
yeah,
know why. I don't know why they're like this deep inside their
short
soul,
or
but
like dyed hair gets a lot of people very
oh
upsetty
yeah.
spaghetti on this
It,
big
it's
old club
it's
we call the internet.
It's absolutely wild. I don't know why there's forbidden hairstyles for main characters.
Yeah,
Like,
it's fucking
it's a
bizarre.
very strange. Yeah. Oh
I
man.
have something even more specific to follow it though. This is the last one before we get into some actual like advice. But it's just this tip is so strange. Why not have an antagonist with psionic mind powers attack your protagonist by trapping them in an evil shared mind prison?
Well, I mean, why not? I mean, that is a thing they could do.
Yeah, but I just love
Like,
the idea of like movies or like books or whatever that have nothing to do with this. So, like, oh, I'm having like real trouble getting to the end of this like rom com. I'm writing like I don't know, like should she choose like guy A or guy B? Is love more important than work? And someone's like, tell you what, why not have an antagonist with psionic mind powers attack your protagonist by trapping them in an evil shared mind prison? It's like, fuck, you're right, that's just what my story needed.
I mean, you laugh, but I think the most tense part of Uncut Gems was after he loses more of the money, and then a psionic antagonist attacks him by placing him into a shared mind prison.
Yeah, like, oh no, his cousin that he like owes all that money to initiates the psionic attack against Howard Ratner.
Yeah, exactly.
God, that fucking bit in Citizen Kane when Charles Foster Kane exhibits the pitch perfect sonic mind attack, heart stopping every single time.
Yeah, and like that part in WandaVision where wait a minute.
Okay, moving on. I feel like we have this rule of any time we get to the MCU, it's okay. Like, okay, next point. We're out of here.
Exactly.
Alright, so Gremlin of Arcadia says all characters are flawed, no matter if they're a Mary Sue or not. It just depends on whether or not the writer can identify these flaws and properly address them in the story.
That is so true.
Yeah.
Like nobody can write a flawless person. It like the even like Mary Sue, like the if we're gonna be using that term, it's kind of an older term. But the idea of like a completely idealized, like perfect character, it's like it's usually someone whose flaws are not noticed by the writer and become apparent to the audience, and that's the disconnect.
Exactly, and that's one of the big things when you get these like very dislikable main characters, because it's perfectly fine to have main characters who are bad people. Like iconic movies like American Psycho, Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer, Nightcrawler, which is one of my favorite movies of all time, or movies that don't have straight up villains as main characters, but like incredibly flawed people, like Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, or Old Boy. What's another good example? Blade Runner, In Bruges, which is a really good movie. But like, point is, it's all about whether the writer seems to actually know their characters and whether they shape the narrative to interestingly address the flaws inherent in them.
There's no way to have a flawless character. Like really? Like even someone like because I know some of you people are already typing it up.
Goku.
Goku does have flaws. He's a bit inattentive to his family sometimes.
He's boring.
Like, he forces, he's dull. He forces Gohan into these battles. Like there are lots of flaws that other characters call him out for in the story.
Swear to God, if any of you type Doom Guy down in the comments, I will climb down there and beat the shit out of you myself. He's not a fucking character. He is a series of engineered gaming experiences that make you feel powerful.
Exactly. And like if you're saying that Doom Guy has no flaws, it's only that you're ignoring everything that is wrong with you when you're playing Doom Guy. You're just going full escapist. It's like Doom Guy is perfect. When I'm Doom Guy, I haven't murdered my family and I'm hearing the sirens outside.
Oh geez. Okay, next point. This is from someone called Doug LaWars. Doug the Wars. That's the better version of Star Wars, but it's all Doug Walker.
No, it's all Comfortable Doug. It's just a Star Wars with only
Maybe
Comfortable
it's
Doug
the
as the
Wars
character.
of the Doug. So it's like Comfortable Doug, Doug Walker, Doug from the show Doug. Oh, Doug Funny, that's his name.
I've already seen Doug Walker's Star Wars, man.
Oh god, yeah, it was. We fucking watched that 3 hour pile of turds together, and we didn't even make a video on it. What is wrong with us? Alright, so anyway, Doug LaWars says, demographics. Select a demographic, doesn't matter which one. Now examine the groups which comprise that demographic. In these abrasive times, there is guaranteed to be conflict among them. This is useful to remember when laying out our plots. In addition, by selecting one of the less publicized demographics, you can give your story an original twist.
I think that's really true.
Yeah, no, I think it is true. And the thing is, I think there's a lot of people who would try to reduce this to things like, like race, gender, cultural background. And it can be true for that. Telling stories about, groups that haven't really been represented before can create really new interesting possibilities, but it goes beyond that. One of my favorite movies is this really strange film from the 80s, which is a bizarre grungy comedy sci-fi called Repo Man. Not to be confused with Repo the Genetic Opera, which is also awesome. But, Repo Man is just about the culture of people who work in, the car repossession industry who end up, repoing a car that has a dead alien.
Oh, wow.
In the back. Which, and again, I would legit really recommend going and watching this. It's super fucking entertaining. A lot of people wouldn't think, oh, let's make a movie about repo men. And as a result, because no one actually really thinks what it's like to be, in that world, being taken into that world and being shown it from this, consummate, well-researched, but also, heightened and funny way, makes for a really interesting narrative experience.
Yeah, it's kind of like how Sorry to Bother You does a whole lot with the world of telemarketers.
Yeah.
And kind of extrapolates that into a grand social critique that I think is pretty biting and pretty on point.
Oh, 100%. And one of the other, in my opinion, greatest dark comedies of all time, Thank You for Smoking, does that for sleazy lobbyists.
Yeah! Oh my god. Yeah, that movie's pretty solid, I'd have to say. I've only seen it once, but I would love to go back and watch that.
No, you definitely should, because I think that's the thing. I've known, I'm not going to name any names, but I've known some writers in my time who, for example, only seem to know how to write stories about, gangsters and assassins. And don't get me wrong, those can be interesting stories, and, some of the most iconic stories of recent and just all time, from Scarface, the Godfather series, Goodfellas, John Wick, more recently, Leon the Professional, you could genuinely go on endlessly for all the great movies about gangsters and hired guns. But because that's such a crowded field, you're gonna have a harder time innovating there.
Yeah, exactly. So this one is really more about finding niche audiences that you can cater your stuff to. I would think of this as kind of the principle behind writing vor stories. It's the kind of people that are into vor, regardless of gender, race, background, economic status. There's a kind of person who likes a certain kind of thing. So when you're writing a story for that, cater to them. And I'm just gonna head this one off at the pass here. Anime does cater to weird pedo people online, but that doesn't make that an okay demographic to support outside of the fact that it does cater to them.
Yeah, that's true. And so yeah, think about who you're catering to, but also think about who you're representing, both in terms of wider social shit, race, sexuality, gender, whatever, but just the actual social worlds that we're moving around in. One of the most successful shows of all time in recent memory, which we've already discussed on the channel, Squid Game, comes out of the fact that, okay, we're exclusively looking at a bunch of people who are all united by the fact they're in massive debt.
Yeah, exactly. And that appeals to a lot of people nowadays. I mean, following COVID, a lot of people, were out of a job, and there's a lot of economic anxiety worldwide. And it's now becoming a little bit more of a global issue.
Yeah, it is. So good advice. All right, on to the next one. This is from The Sky Was Looking Back. This isn't a joke. My favourite piece of writing advice that I've ever seen is someone said that if you were stuck with a fic and couldn't figure out why or what was wrong, your problem is usually about 10 sentences back. Maybe there was something wonky about the tone or dialogue, or you added something that didn't fit, but it's usually 10 sentences back. And every time I get stuck in a fic, I count back 10 sentences and it's always fucking there. And then someone called Christina Writes Fiction added, if you write yourself into a corner, back out of the corner.
This is so true. Like, I can't, like, count how many times that, like, we've done this in a Less is Morgue script where we've just been like, this bit's not working. All right, start over, move back to where things, like, made sense intuitively, cut all these lines, and then, like, move forward with a new, like, branching path.
Yeah, you, me, and Sean had that exact experience working on an upcoming script. And yeah, like, genuinely, sometimes you do just need to salt the earth, say, okay, this entire bit isn't working, let's reverse to the last bit that we thought, okay, this is unambiguously good, and just change direction from there.
I would advise against, and this is more me, like, talking at myself from the future, but, like, sometimes in my own personal writing, I, like, will write and rewrite a scene endlessly to the point that, like, my first draft takes way longer to complete than it naturally should. But doing this once or twice, especially when you're, like, really stumped, it can help to be like, all right, well, where did I go wrong? And chances are it's like, well, you know, there's just infinite potential 10 lines back. And you can use that to jump off into another place.
Yeah,
you know?
That's good, practical advice. I don't think anyone would disagree with that. This next one, I think Meg has included this purely because I feel like it was partially facetious, but it does bring up a really good nuts and bolts point, I want to say. So, Void of Words says, commas are like dogs. You can never have too many. A point which I vehemently disagree with.
Yeah, you can have too many commas.
Well, that's the thing. Two of my main writing outlets are things like Less is Morgue. One of my main, ghostwriting jobs. I write for video content. And the thing is, you quickly learn, if ever you are writing for actors to perform, whether it's an audio thing, whether it's a video thing, whether it's a movie, show, stage play, whatever, you have to take into account the fact that these people need air to breathe. And thus, it's really important to vary your sentence structure and split things up so people have a chance to, exhale. And even if you're working purely in prose, which I've been known to do in the past, a long sentence will mentally tire your audience out.
Yeah, and the thing is, there's no shame in employing the Chad period over the, virgin comma. Like, having shorter sentences or clearly, separated sentences over, a bunch of segments to one sentence can be very good. Think of how many commas you would have had to put in what I just said when you could have put periods instead.
Well, that's the thing. At the end of the day, it's not just a dichotomy between commas and periods, as you would say, full stops, as I, as an Englishman, would say. But the thing is, also consider you've got colons, semicolons, em dashes. You have all these different options which could work better. If you just have two separate clauses in a sentence that are still kind of on the same point, have a semicolon in the middle. And for what it's worth, a really good, I think a lot of people get confused about semicolons, but one of the best pieces of advice I've ever been given for if you just want to remember what the correct way to use a semicolon is, think a semicolon is good for when and would work, but you don't want to put and. So something like this. I love ice cream, and ice cream is great. But you could also say, I love ice cream. Ice cream is great. Two separate clauses, same subject but slightly different, stick a semicolon in the middle.
Yeah, so I guess this one is more about, varying your toolbox of, things to use. Commas or anything, don't just use one thing over and over again repeatedly. Vary it up.
Yeah, exactly, because the fact is, we're happy to give you, the big philosophical underpinnings, themes, characters, yada, yada, yada. But if you're gonna be a writer, you also need to be a good technical writer. Actual, like, nuts and bolts grammar is important. Next we have from Woman Behind Words. Here's a writing tip that I think is quite helpful. When you're stuck in a chapter, you don't know what to write or where to begin, just leave it there and write the ending. When we get an idea for a book, we also visualize the ending. So go there, remind your mind what you expected when you first started writing this story, your expectations and aspirations from this story. It has personally helped, and I'm curious if it helps anyone else or not. I think this is kind of contentious. What do you think, Gus?
I think that, I would say contentious is a good way to put it, because there are people who believe wholeheartedly in the philosophy of, write backwards from your ending, and then everything will make sense, because it would all be, causal. But at the same time...
That can fail characters is the big problem. Game of Thrones being a very good example.
There's a lot of stuff that, you can learn, going forward, seeing the growth of the character, that you won't necessarily get if you just plot it out by, cause and effect. Because, if we wanted cause and effect, we could look at a Rube Goldberg machine. That's not always the totality of a story, you know?
Don't say that!
I'm sorry.
A Rube Goldberg machine. Oh, God. Watch the Sierra Blanca video. You'll go fucking insane.
Yes,
I completely agree. The fact is, this can be useful. I don't want to completely poo-poo this idea, because for certain narratives, it can be really helpful to be like, all right, this is the ending we need to get to. Let's figure out what to do to get there. But personally, I think, just because me and Gus work together on this a lot, we are big believers in have a rough outline, but also roll with the punches. We had a Less is More script, for example, recently, where anyone familiar with the show will know that the structure is typically Riley and Evelyn, the two main characters, hang out, guest appears, hilarity ensues. But for this episode, we were writing the interplay between Riley and Evelyn, and despite the fact that we had a bunch of stuff with a guest planned, we just said to each other, hey, this section is going really well. Shall we just cut the guest and let it play out like this? And it was way stronger for it. So I think it's really important to actually never be too rigid about sticking to a certain outcome and opening up your mind to the possibility of exciting things happening spontaneously.
Exactly. And to just, advocate for the, writing backwards approach a little bit, I think it's very useful in tabletop games where, that the story will advance, but, you can't plan for every choice your characters are making. So you, you make these little junctures which they can potentially hit, and then you build out the kind of, web of every single possibility from there. Because you can't... You wouldn't be able to, program Skyrim on the fly, And it's the same way where you want to let your players have, freedom in your tabletop game. So, you just have the stops on the road, essentially, ready to go for, when they arrive there. That way they feel like it was waiting for them.
Yeah, I think that's really strong advice for that kind of specific thing as well. And I think in short form work, too, it can be really helpful. So, yeah, I would say, just because we tend to do it a certain way doesn't mean that'll necessarily work for you. Try both ways, see what's better. It's all a creative journey.
Like all dichotomies between two approaches to writing, chances are different people can use different ones and they can both be successful. So, there's no one right way to do it in regards to that.
Exactly. Anyone who says otherwise is selling something. All right, are you ready for the next one?
Yep, let's do it.
All right, this is from Daily Fantasy Ideas. This is a fucking weird one. Are you ready?
So, are we going to learn about the strength of bow wielders versus the strength of two-headed weapon wielders?
No, this is Sonic Battle weird in the sense that it's this is so arbitrary. All right, are you ready? Why not give your characters some noticeable but very minor odd physical habits? For example, a character could have a habit of closing their right eye in response to engaging in certain physical activities and exertions, such as stretching, yawning, dramatically posing, or getting hit. You don't even have to give a reason for them doing it, just have it be something they do for some reason. Or it could also be a social activities thing, maybe while talking with people or existing in a social space, a character could fiddle with their own hands, contorting them into weird shapes. And hey, it's a fantasy setting, right? So why not have a magic character cast very small, low-level powered spells in their hands, or tapping their feet, when they're spelled THEIR, not having or having to focus on anything else.
Here's the thing. I don't think this is as much for writers as it is for like visual designers and animators. Like I think this like kind of stuff can happen in the backgrounds of cartoons, but if you write out like a paragraph like, X blinks her eye like in response to this like a bunch of times, it's going to seem really weird. But if it's like a visual thing, other stuff's going on, you can have characters have these weird quirks. In fact, I like it when a lot of like little things are going on in the background that like kind of further characterize the things non-verbally.
Well, that's the thing. Like regardless of whether we're talking visual or prose, I disagree with the philosophical underpinnings of this post, because the sentence I really take issue with, you don't even have to give a reason for them doing it. Just have it be something they do for some reason. Like, the thing is, if your character is gonna have some quirk, because there's a Blake Snyder technique in reference to like making little side characters interesting called a limp and an eye patch, where basically if a character is just around for one scene, given some weird thing, you can memorize them. Like, why have like just a character who is just a janitor when they can be like a janitor with an eye patch? Because that's just a little bit more visually weird and interesting. But with reference to characters who actually matter, I think if you're having them do anything, there has to be a deeper reason. Because the fact is, in real life, nobody does anything for no reason. You trace any action back far enough, and there's going to be something. And it's not to say that, like, every eye twitch has, like, a specific reason for that, but if you're having a character's eye twitch, maybe you're trying to make the point that, like, the character is erratic or nervous, or like if a character is tapping their foot, maybe they're anxious or have a lot of energy. If you have a character who likes to like crack their knuckles a lot, maybe they're somewhat like brutish or like to like charge in head on and work things like that. Like, all of these things should never just be like weird dead air quirks. They always have to be this like opportunity for characterization, I would say.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Yeah, even if it is like a nonverbal, very minor thing, there should be a reason why you're putting it in there, because otherwise, what's the point? You could replace it with a more robust character trait.
Yeah, exactly. Like, all of these things, like, I'll put it this way. If you have a character who, like, doesn't blink much, that's gonna make them look a little bit eerie. So it makes more sense to ascribe that trait to a character who was always meant to be a bit eerie. Like the famous thing of Hannibal Lecter, like, rarely blinking in Silence of the Lambs.
Yeah, I think the like idea of like the spell casting is actually like a little bit better of an example than the blinking, because with the spell casting you can imagine like they're doing it for like utility, like warming their drinks or like levitating small objects over to them, and like the utility would be like obvious there. And I like the idea of like, the practicality of doing this is intuitive, and it's not just this weird like, why are they doing that, and then the writer going, I don't know why they're doing that.
Yeah, I think we'll do the classic thing of, like, we'll synthesize this into a better rule of, like, don't just have your characters, like, standing still, like, just saying dialogue at each other. Think of interesting things for them to be doing that can either be, like, that will ideally be entertaining, tell us a little bit about them, and, if you can, a little bit about the world, too.
Yeah, and like characters can have more than just their like broad characteristics. They can have like small, strange, like personal characteristics that can be just as meaningful as the bigger ones and create a more full picture of this fictional person you're making.
Yeah, I agree. Alright, on to the next one. This is another just, like, fun little quirky one, but I'm curious to see what you think of it. From Wisdom, Weird Stuff, and Rants. That's the internet. It's, my best writing advice is no swearing until you've finished a scene, and then once you've finished, just let out a big fuck!
Does that mean like in real life, like they finish a scene and they say fuck?
I presume so, because it'd be really weird if in any scene it always ends with a character just going, fuck!
Yeah. Well, that's... I'm just imagining like a movie where like they just like Mad Max Fury Road, for example. Like they're driving the car and they arrive at a spot and then Max just goes fuck.
I love that bit in Little Women where all of the girls like reconcile with their father, and then he just goes "fuck" at the end of the scene.
This is such a weird rule because I think what they're trying to say is go back in and add swearing then. But the way that they phrased it was just like, it's gotta be a big fuck.
I don't even think it's that. I think it's just this idea of like, temper your frustration, and then like, but to me, this conjures this image of someone who is like sitting and writing and doing like the Jeremy Fragrance like, fuck, asshole, piece of shit. This is how you attract attention using verbal words.
Yeah. This one I think is more just like, I guess, a temperament advice for when writing, if writing is a frustrating thing.
Yeah, I mean, if you're in
be.
Starbucks, especially, don't sit just going, fuck, shit, fuck, ugh, asshole,
but also, like,
penis.
Also just don't end your script in Starbucks and go like, fuck!
You may not be allowed in that Starbucks again.
Oh my god.
And that's not even finish a script, that's every time you finish a scene. Fuck!
I'm just imagining this would be like a great I'm imagining like a Key and Peele sketch or something, but someone's like writing their script in the Starbucks and they're like, oh, fuck.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And the baristas are just like, should we do something about him?
Shit. Fuck. Just like, oh no.
It's horrifying. Alright, with that out of the way, are you ready to get onto something meaty that might be a little bit controversial with you?
Oh, with me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Alright, so this is from Isabella Hawks. Alright. She leads in with, today I'm going to defend the tropes in fiction that everyone hates. I've been watching AuthorTube and BookTube for several years, and over a period of time, I've realised that certain tropes get more blind hate than they deserve. So I'll be talking about 5 tropes everyone hates, or so they claim to, and explain why they're really not that bad.
I'm so intrigued. I think I might either end up agreeing or like hard disagreeing.
Number 1
or being convinced.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the thing. I'm going to read them to you. Number 1 is the self-insert. People make fun of self-inserts because they, in theory, drag the quality of a story down. But what exactly is a self-insert? Well, it's supposed to be a character that resembles a more perfect version of the author, typically the main character. This character is hot and can do no wrong and defeats all of their enemies easily. However, what is actually a self-insert? The main character of any novel, especially if it's written by a woman. That is true, I will admit. That is a criticism levied.
Oh, yep, it's very true.
Isabella is coming in hot. Woman authors are more often than not accused of writing self-inserts, especially if the main character is also a woman. Oh, our comment section is going to be spicy. And bonus points if they have the same hair colour, because brown is such an uncommon hair colour. Self-inserts are typically also referred to as Mary Sues. Here's a tip. Go in the opposite direction from anyone who uses that term today, unironically.
Agreed.
I'm not saying that self-inserts don't exist in fiction, or that people don't write, quote, Mary Sues. But let's be honest, this is just another way to dig at a woman author for not writing the just perfect and acceptable representation of a woman. The character is likable? Self-insert. The character is unlikable? Self-insert. The character is good at most things? This is wish fulfillment. The character is completely incompetent? She's so pathetic. She must be a self-insert. Aside from primarily being directed at women, even though the most renowned male authors have never had trouble expressing their own self-inserts, Leo Tolstoy, Victor Hugo, Stephen King, etc. Stephen King, as much as I love him, is especially fucking guilty of this. That's just me. Like, how many Stephen King main characters are like alcoholic writers from Maine?
Yeah.
Self-inserts by themselves aren't even a bad thing. Writing a character that has the same traits as the author doesn't mean the quality of the story will be less than. If anything, the author will know how the character would realistically react to any situation. To be clear, also not saying that you should just write characters that are exactly like you, but it's pretty impossible to write a character that is exactly like you impossible to write a character that is exactly like you as you keep writing your story. As you develop your character, they become a separate entity from you. It's possible that by the end of the manuscript, your self-insert only has a few traits in common with you, and that's the strange thing about people critiquing self-inserts. This is assuming you know the author, and 9 out of 10 cases you don't, not even if they're a YouTuber. So really, it's kind of a creepy accusation. A better critique of a main character would be that they excelled in everything too easily, or that they were so perfect it was annoying. You don't need to drag the author's perceived personality into the mix. Also, make sure the character is actually too perfect, rather than you don't expect a woman to be capable of doing anything.
Where was the lie?
Yeah,
everything
that's true.
in that was dead spot on.
That's
and I know there's going to be
devastating.
some really salty people down there in the comments, the 5 or 6 interchangeable guys with sock puppet accounts who
Or
think
like
that,
shitty little drawings of like themselves with like a fucking chin strap beard and a dorky hat.
desperately want to ratio this video that is just pointing out the truth. But and the other thing too is that if people think that someone with some kind of self-insert character can't be fascinating, I'm going to point you to Luke Skywalker, whose name is Luke S., created by George Lucas. He's one of the most celebrated heroes of all time, and he's also a big blank slate hero. But if we want to go deeper than that, at a character that reflects all the vulnerabilities of the author, Shinji Ikari from Neon Genesis Evangelion, a great protagonist from a great series who is nonetheless reflective of Anno's whole psychological kind of issue and hang up coming into that work. There's nothing wrong with this, and I think I can't say it better than what we've just heard. Put this to bed. It doesn't need to be a criticism anymore. Critique the actual writing, not the fact that it is the self-insert. Retire the buzzword.
No, exactly, because whether it is a self-insert is immaterial. As Isabella Hawke says, it's only whether it's a good or bad one. Alright, number 2, flashbacks.
I am ready. As a shonen anime watcher, I have some feelings on this, but I have a feeling that it's going to hit differently when there's not studio budgets and reused animation involved.
That's true. Alright, I've seen a lot of people who hate flashbacks, and honestly, this is the one on the list where I can see why people do. However, I've seen a lot of hate being thrown its way, and I personally love flashbacks when they're necessary. I love multiple timelines when done well. I love a non-linear story structure. Flashbacks tend to get hate because sometimes the flashbacks are placed in awkward times in the story, or they don't seem to add much, or they just confuse the audience. These are totally valid criticisms, but I think, like with self-inserts, they're not always done horribly. A common piece of writing advice is to start your story where the story starts, otherwise known as the inciting incident. The inciting incident is not always where a flashback takes place in the main character's story. Perhaps the most well-known example of this is the show Lost. Weird spacing on this. For one thing, Lost has a big cast, and it would have been annoying to follow these random characters with family issues that seemingly don't have much of a connection until they crash on an island, probably, in the 3rd season? Sometimes a story starts with a catastrophic event that brings up the memories for the main character. It wouldn't be effective storytelling to start off with Jack ruining his alcoholic dad's reputation and then crashing on an island. That's some out-of-nowhere twist. Also, sometimes a story needs flashbacks, typically in the mystery or thriller genres. Maybe readers who don't like flashbacks don't enjoy these kinds of stories, but I just think the flashback hate would actually ruin a lot of cool stories.
Yeah, because, no flashbacks means, no Rashomon. No that entire, kind of story inspired by that really good Akira Kurosawa film. It's just another technique. It's not a bad trope.
Yeah, again, it's the... Isabella has this great point where she's kind of bringing people back to rationality by saying, why do we have these stupid Pavlovian hate things for stuff that can either be executed well or badly? It's well, we don't mean... Alright, I won't say any names, but there's this one kind of annoying YouTuber who just hates any time that there's a twist villain, and it's that's just a plot device. It can either be done well or badly. Let's not acting twist villain, that doesn't mean anything.
Beyond the fact that we as individuals can be biased against certain, elements of fiction, we also have to keep in mind that, like, if you hate flashbacks because you've seen a lot of things that do flashbacks badly, that just means you've seen a lot of bad media. Like, that doesn't necessarily mean that flashbacks were the reason it was bad. There were probably, like, extenuating circumstances that made the flashback poorly executed.
You're so right. I want to say this next one. This is the one that I thought of when I thought, okay, this could be controversial with Gus.
Is it repeating words for comedy? Is it repeating words for comedy? Is it repeating words for comedy?
No, no, and no. Number 3 is The Chosen One.
Go on.
I honestly think that people who hate the Chosen One storyline don't actually read many Chosen One stories. That's because their complaints are bizarre oversimplifications about what the Chosen One could be, but never is. I've heard people say that the Chosen One is randomly chosen, for no clear purpose or reason. The 3 most popular examples are Harry in Harry Potter, Frodo in Lord of the Rings, and Katniss in The Hunger Games is brought up a lot for some reason. Critics of this trope act like these characters were just randomly chosen by some all-knowing being to save the world, and that's just not true. All 3 of these examples weren't chosen, they were victims of life circumstances, as are all of us. Harry's parents were murdered, and a protection spell was placed on him. It was all because of Voldemort. He made the decision to go after Harry because he heard of a prophecy that Harry could be his undoing. It could have also been Neville. The point is, this wasn't some grand design from God, it was circumstances that led to Harry being the chosen one. In Lord of the Rings, Frodo inherited the ring. Gandalf and Frodo even have a discussion about how it didn't have to be Frodo, but that's just too damn bad. It is. And Katniss became a symbol of the rebellion in Panem because she was the first person in a long time to actively show some resistance against the capital. Again, this was due to life circumstances. The point of the Chosen One is never to show how these incredible everyday heroes are. How incredible these everyday heroes are. In fact, it's the opposite. The point is that random things happen that lead these heroes down extraordinary circumstances, and they never wanted to, but that's too damn bad. I just think people who critique this trope aren't actually even talking about the trope when it's used, they're just borrowing jokes from cinema sins. This one I find a little bit more contentious as well, because I feel like, I fucking hate saying this because it makes me sound like such a YouTube person, but like, I feel like this strawmans the criticism a little bit.
Well, beyond the straw man, like, you know, because the mention of CinemaSins, as someone who despises CinemaSins, like, I won't take that personally that was in there. I just don't think it's relevant to our discussion. But the thing is, Katniss Everdeen, clearly not a chosen one. Harry Potter, yeah, there's an in-universe explanation.
But to be fair, I would say to step back, like, it's the prophecy that he would be his undoing that makes him the chosen one, not the fact he survived. I know that's just semantics, but like...
Well, here's the thing, and I will say this as someone who's come out to, like, criticize, like, you know, chosen one style stories. It's not a position, because, like everything, the more you write, the less you get attached to, like, specific critical positions, because you're like, well, what if I have to write something in this genre? Or what if I have to, like, you know, try something new here? So you never really rule anything out once you're at a certain level of experience. But with regards to the chosen one, the kind of thing I dislike is when people, like, you know, do something like, oh, well, King Arthur was such a great story, or, like, you know, X mythological figure from Greek mythology was so good, so let's just do that completely fine. And you'll notice that it's always people who are, like, weird PragerU types or, like, you know, white nationalists who, like, you know, talk about classic stories as if, like, nothing was wrong with them. So when I criticize, you know, the hero's journey and the chosen one stuff,
it's the more manifest destiny aspect to it.
Yeah, and I'm more specifically criticizing, like, people who think, like, right out of the Joseph Campbell book with all of its Christian mysticism and, like, recuperating of, like, actual mythology, that itself is sufficient enough to create a good character. And I don't think that's true. And fortunately, I have to admit, even as someone who doesn't like Harry Potter as much, a lot of the modern examples of it are deconstructive in of themselves, and people who are, like, monomyth heads bringing these up, the moment you actually have them break down the nuances of the story, the moment you realize, like, oh no, this simplistic, like, you know, hero thing never works. It never has worked. Any story that has to be anywhere near somewhat successful has created its own identity beyond that. I'd say that's even true of Star Wars, even though I have a lot of hang-ups about, like, Luke Skywalker's character throughout those first 3 films. And you'll notice I didn't say anything other than the first 3 films, but let's not go there. Comment section's spicy enough.
Exactly. Oh, also, before we move on, fuck J.K. Rowling, fuck TERFs. Okay, so...
Yeah, fuck TERFs, fuck J.K. Rowling. And her books aren't even that good.
Yeah,
they kind of
they
suck.
really aren't. Like, you just read them as a kid. That's why you think they're really good. Alright, so, number 4, teenage heroes / super soldiers.
Do people hate this trope, or does everyone love this trope?
I think some people just hate, like, you know... like, something I want to say is, I feel like it does sometimes feel like the overemphasis on teenage main characters in things can create this, like, false thing that, like, oh yeah, best years of your lives, it's all fucking downhill after that, when I just don't believe that to be true. And I think it is important to tell a diverse range of stories of all age groups. But let's see what... I'm not saying that that's anything that, you know, Isabella is saying shouldn't be the case. I'll give this a read, shall I?
Yeah, go for it.
When people complain about this trope, I get really confused. For one thing, teenager heroes are typically in young adult books, which you'd think would be obvious. But a lot of adult YA readers don't actually seem to like teenagers at all, so why are they reading about them? I also get confused when people complain about this trope because they say it's not realistic, meaning it doesn't reflect real life. They don't buy that young people are targeted by any particular industries because they're young. Not only does the military target high schoolers because that's when they're most physically fit, their minds are also more impressionable. Universities do the same thing. Every industry targets the youth to mold into a good soldier, a good student, a good worker bee, another cog in the machine, if you will. But each person targeted feels special, kind of like a hero. Sure, it might sound weird to have an army made up of 13-year-olds because of the kids you see around you, but back in the day, that was the norm. It's only unusual sounding by today's standards. Just Google the age of King Tut and you'd be surprised how wrong you are. I guess that's for people who are just, like, weirdly pissed about, like, Ender's Game and stuff. I feel like that's something that just went completely over our heads, because that's not, like, a criticism that is in, like, our world as people who probably don't read YA much.
Yeah, well, the other thing, too, is that, like, we live in a world of, like, you know, looking at art we are interested in and enjoy. And so I honestly just can't fathom how many people out there exclusively watch and read things that they don't like habitually and think it's going to get better.
Yeah, it's a form of bizarre masochism that neither of us will ever really relate to.
Yeah, like, I'm not even talking about, like, you know, you're mad about the execution of a particular genre. Just, like, you have a categorical disdain for this type of story, and yet it's all you consume. Like, I don't get that mindset, but there are people like that out there.
Yeah, if you just sit and eat cookies, they'll never turn into caviar just because you will it.
Yeah, well, it just, there are so many people who, like, this is an odd example, but you'll see where I'm going here, because it applies to, like, everything like this. People who will just be like, man, I hate all these CW superhero shows with, like, The Flash and, like, Arrow. They all get bad at, like, season 5, and it's like, why are you watching them until season 5? Why are you here? Your time could be so much better spent, my dude.
Yeah, those are hours you will never, ever get back. Please, love yourself. Alright, you ready for the next one? One-dimensional villains.
Interesting.
This is a bit of a longer one, so we'll stop at multiple points in it, so I'm not throwing a shitload of points at you and then saying, so what do you think?
Yeah.
Alright.
Oh.
For a time, we hated seeing villains that were just evil, for seemingly no reason. We wanted something different. We wanted villains who felt real like we do. We wanted funny villains. We wanted quirky villains. We wanted to see ourselves in villains, because we wanted to feel challenged by our material. We didn't want the good guys to always be right. We wanted to understand the villain's point. So we got tons of villains with tragic backstories and redemption arcs. Not one of them can stay evil unless they're the last season baddie. That guy's just Satan. It's literally Satan most of the time now. And that's very true.
It is really true, yeah.
Like, that's really fucking true. That is
like the super god of evil. Naruto has one of the biggest examples with that. Like, spoilers for the end of the Naruto manga. I'm gonna be, like, breaking this down in like, shorter terms. The bad guy of the story is like a terrorist who's orchestrating a big plan, and then it's the ancient like figure that he's inspired by, and then it's a just giant evil tree that pooped biblical evil into the world, and then it's the mother of the tree who's from an alien race who comes from like beyond the known world, and then it's her son who has turned into a shadow that now possesses her and seeds hatred throughout the world, and then it's the main character's, like, childhood rival.
That was stupid, Double D. Alright. Yeah, and obviously Supernatural has a huge problem with that as well. It's just always fucking, here's Evil McEvilson. Alright. Then she goes on to say, every villain's got to have a point, or at least a sob story. It's totally fine for a villain to have a point and a sob story, but it's gotten out of hand. We've gone to a tricky place where many writers are unintentionally trying to justify their villain's actions through their explanations of how a villain got to be that way, got to be the way that they are. Or, if you're a writer on YouTube, let's be honest, you're going to pretend all of your characters are three-dimensional people, because you're the one writing them. Oh, called us out.
Yeah!
Isabel reached through space and time to fucking smack us.
Oh my god. Of all of the advice we've had so far, Isabella, I think, like, people better pay attention to this portion of the video. Like,
for what it's worth, I am not at all pretending Todd, Sishmael, Ryan Lobel, like, a lot of these Less is More villains, I am not pretending they are three-dimensional.
Oh, yeah, definitely
They're just
not,
funny bastards.
Yeah, exactly.
Where are we? Okay, so, but not every reader is going to think of your character chart. So, when you don't have these tragic backstory reveals or understand why a villain is committing genocide, the reader's just going to think, this is a one-dimensional villain. And that's okay. Why do we need to justify genocide anyway? When we think of the real world's most evil people, we don't see their complexity as a human being, we see a monster. And honestly, I don't see why every fictional villain needs to be humanized in every fictional story. It all depends on the story you're trying to tell and your themes. But your story definitely doesn't need to give your villain redemptive attributes. Those are the 5 tropes I've seen a lot of crap about, even from people who use these tropes. And I don't think that they're bad, they've just been oversimplified. Most any trope can be done well in fiction. They just have to be utilized in an effective emotional way. And if you just hate these tropes, well, that's okay too. Just keeping an open mind is one of the most efficient ways to improve your rating and expand your horizons. You dropped this, Queen. Isabella Hawks.
No.
Damn good shit.
Isabella Hawks, exactly. And I think that's a great takeaway at the end. Just one last thing I wanted to say on, like, villains in particular. I feel like so many people get into their heads that, like, it's either one-dimensional or sympathetic. But no, you can have very unsympathetic, very evil, cruel antagonists who are not one-dimensional. But they can be very, very evil. And they can be, like, nothing in their backstory makes you feel sad for them. And I think a lot of people forget that.
Exactly, like, complexity doesn't equal niceness. Like, Johann Liebert from Monster is a very complex character. He's also a complete shitheel.
Because all it does is it creates this weird universal theme across many works where it's like, well, the sadder and the harder someone's life is, the more evil they'll do, which just isn't true.
Yeah, it really isn't. It really isn't. Alright, so we are, I'd say, in the last quarter of the stuff. How are you feeling about Tumblr writing advice so far?
Honestly, a lot of these have been, like, bangers. There have been a lot of weird specific ones, but, like, I think the weird specific ones make sense in the weird specific quadrant of internet users that they're being aimed at.
Yeah, I agree. Before we do the last half, I just quickly, last quarter, I just quickly want to say, if you enjoy, like, hearing Gus and I talk, whether about goofy stuff or, like, you know, deeper analysis of different things, consider joining the Dire Gentleman Patreon, which is 1 tier, it's $1, and for that you get 2, like, generally at least an hour-long exclusive podcasts every single month, where it's stuff like analysis of, like, weird, interesting, like, pieces of art, or just, like, fun, strange stuff, like us talking about which animals we think we could beat in a fight. Link will be down in the description, but if you love this channel and want to see it keep happening and want to get some really cool extra content for just $1 a month, then I would thoroughly recommend joining up. There's some really fun stuff on there.
Exactly. It's just a little bonus for, like, all you diehards out there who want something that's, like, not necessarily algorithm friendly, but something that you'll probably find really interesting and that we are, like, super passionate about.
Yeah, everything from us discussing, like, Austin Powers and Nothing But Trouble to, I believe the day this comes out, we've released a video on a really strange B horror movie from the 70s called Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things that was filmed at Gus's mum's childhood home.
It's very true. And speaking of, like, like demographics and, like, movies that have their own, like, weird identity, that movie, it takes the usual, like, horror trope of, like, kids in a cabin and makes them all, like, theater kids. So it really, like, adds something to it in that way, just going by something we said in this video. So if you guys are interested, please go ahead and check that out. All right. Plugging time over. Let's get into the last one of these.
From Dear Dragon Book, a quick tip for seeing if dialogue sounds natural. This is a tip, not a full post/instruction/how-to thing. A single simple action that might help you out, and that is read your dialogue, except only your dialogue. Ignore all the actions, expressions, just read the spoken words. Although in real life dialogue is accompanied by actions, those actions aren't accompanied by narration. So when spoken out loud, isolated from the narrator, so if spoken out loud, isolated from the narrator, it sounds weird and off, it might require some revision. On that note, do remember that we pretty much all sound awkward when speaking to people for the first time, or if we're nervous for any number of reasons. Yep, I think that's a solid practical tip.
Definitely. And, like, I can't stress this enough. Get your dialogue heard out loud before your first draft is done. It's not finished until you've heard people speak the dialogue, even if it's just you, or, like, you have, like, a speech, like, software that's going to put it all through. Even in, like, a robot voice, you can still be able to tell what sounds natural.
Yeah, Gus and Meg and I, both for Less is Morgue and all of our independent projects, we swear by, like, getting ourselves and maybe a couple friends on a call and, like, religiously doing table reads. Like, I think it's one of the most valuable techniques in editing that we've got. We're going to do a table read and edit a Less is Morgue episode once we finish recording this.
Yeah, no, literally. Table reads and, like, reading through dialogue, reading through scripts, it's practical and it's fun, and, like, just tip for life, if you can do anything with friends, do it,
You'll have
like,
a more fun
just
time.
Just have friends who help you out. Yeah, exactly.
You'll get both that'll help from your friends.
Yeah.
Alright, second to last post from Right Blur Fantasy. Some writing techniques that have really helped me lately, especially when I'm not worried about the quality of the writing, just the fact that I have a 5, 6, 10k goal that day. Already I can tell I'm probably going to enjoy this, because I do love things that are very much like, just do it advice. Just take 30 seconds. Bathroom break, water break, snack break, shower break. I can't tell you how many times it has helped me to walk away from the screen after staring at that blinking cursor. I've gotten so many dialogue lines or lines that have come in the next scene I'm writing that I can't wait to get back to the screen and write them down. Yep, I'd say that's pretty valid. Like, you gotta take breaks sometimes. Grab a drink, go for a piss, get a snack. Just don't let it become procrastination. As it said, like, take 30 seconds.
Well, here's my advice, too, because something that's, like, helped me, and my parents also, they've written their own stuff here and there. My mom and dad both have, like, self-published novels. They have sworn by this, and I've taken this forward, is, like, if you're really stumped, go for a nice long run or a jog.
Or a walk, even. Get some fresh air.
Yeah, as long as you're, like, doing something, moving your body and thinking,
Yeah.
It can help the gears start turning again. By the time you get back to the computer, you're good. I think one of the biggest tragedies of, like, people who are writing but not yet, like, kind of professionally as a full-time job is that a lot of times we do come up with, like, ideas for writing at work when our brain's already working, and then by the time we get home, we're so exhausted from work that it's hard to put them into practice. So, with whatever free time you can, put it into, like, working out or, like, finding something to do that gets your gears turning, but something that you can easily return from.
In the words of pretty iconic writer and director Ingmar Bergman of The Seventh Seal and Persona fame, the demons hate fresh air.
Exactly. So, never play video games. No.
You
We're not going there.
fucking
We're not going
nerd. All right.
there.
All right. Next we have remember what the end goal of the scene is. Where are your characters going? What do they mean to accomplish something? Is there a realization that needs to happen? If you're stuck in a slow bit of dialogue, it can be helpful to remember why you're here and where you're going. Wholeheartedly agree.
Yep, I think so too.
Yeah. We wrote a script recently called Sophie Woke Up. We collaborated on it. I'm not going to give too many details, but every single scene religiously we were like, okay, what are we driving at here? What are we getting done? And we did that, and then in the edit afterwards, we excised anything that didn't work towards that point.
Exactly. Every line had to follow the two things rule, as we've called it. It has to accomplish two distinct purposes within the scene. If it doesn't, it's unnecessary.
Yeah, like, for example, it can be plot and character. It can be character and a joke. It can be foreshadowing. Like, as long as it is doing at least two things, keep it. If it's just doing one thing, you could probably just amalgamate it into another thing.
Exactly.
Right. And they also say, if there's a scene that's been giving you trouble and you're stuck on, just abandon it. It's not going anywhere. It will be there for you to spend as much time on once editing comes. Skip ahead to the next one or to a scene that you're excited to write. Yep, no, that's fair. Like, at the end of the day, smoke 'em if you got 'em, in my opinion. Like, as long as you're writing, that's what matters most.
Yeah, definitely. Like, feel free to just, write whatever scene comes most naturally to you, because there can always be another draft if you're not sure about it.
I mean, the thing is, well, you got to ask yourself, if a scene is a real slog to write, it might be a slog to experience as well, so maybe it needs to be changed or revised in some major way. But yeah, my agreement would be, when you have writing energy, just wheel spinning is never a constructive thing to do. Like...
Exactly. Well, that's the thing. If a scene is coming more naturally to you than one you've planned out, like if it's getting on the page, then it's probably closer to what you're going to end up getting, so you should just write it like that.
Exactly. We are now on to our final post, so we're making pretty good time, but it's one of those ones that is like a bunch of bullet points. However, this is a fascinating one that we are very qualified to talk about. So I'm going to do the thing I did before where I'll take frequent stops and we'll discuss so that I'm not, like, overwhelming you. Alright. From Headspace Hotel. Thinking again about TV tropes and how it's genuinely such an amazing resource for learning the mechanics of storytelling. Honestly, more so than a lot of formally taught literature classes.
Okay. Wow. All right, we were really building up to this one.
The thing is...
we're going to be open-minded.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Like, where I'm at on this is either going to be cringeworthy garbage or, like, Isabel Hawkes level... never thought of
Galaxy
it that way
Brain
type shit.
It's gonna be either Galaxy Brain or like Void Brain.
Yeah. So we're going with open mind. All right. Reasons for this. Bullet point number 1. Basically, TV Tropes breaks down stories mechanically using a perspective that's not about mechanics. Another way I like to put it is that it's an inductive instead of deductive approach to analysing storytelling. Like in a literature or writing class, you're learning the elements that are part of the basic functions of a story, so character, plot, setting, etc. You're learning the things that make a story and why. You learn what a setting is, what defines it, and work from there to what makes it effective, and the range of ways it can be effective. Here's the thing though, everyone has some intuitive understanding of how stories work. If we didn't, we couldn't understand stories. TV Tropes' approach is bottom-up instead of top-down. Instead of trying to exhaustively explore the broad general elements of a story, it identifies very small specific elements and explores the absolute shit of how they fit, what they do, where they go, how they work. Every TV Tropes article is basically, here is a piece of a story that is a part of many different stories. You have probably seen it before, but if not, here is a list of stories that use it, where it is, and what it's doing in those stories. Here are some things it does. Here is why it is functionally different than other similar story pieces. Here is some background on the origins and how audiences respond to it. All of this is brilliant for a lot of reasons. One of the major ones is that the site has long lists of media that utilizes any given trope, ranging from classic literature to cartoons to video games to advertisements. The Iliad and Adventure Time are different things, but they are made of the same stuff. And being able to study dozens of examples of a trope in action teaches you to see the common thread in what the trope does and why its specific characteristics let it do that. How are you feeling about this so far?
Well, I mean, it is true that it kind of consolidates all of the research in one place. Like, like if you're like, what is that thing? Like, I might want to put this into my story. What else has done this? TV Tropes is the resource that lets you do that. So, like, if this person's advice is like, or if their insights are like that TV Tropes is a comprehensive resource, I think, yeah, that is true. And I get what they're saying with this point. So far, I think, yeah, it's true.
Tentatively, we're there, but where's the money shot?
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Mm-hmm. I love TV Tropes because a great renowned work of literature and a shitty derivative YA novel will appear on the same list, because they're made of the same stuff. And breaking down that mental barrier between them is good on its own for developing a mechanical understanding of storytelling. But also, I think one of the biggest blessings of TV Tropes' commitment to cataloguing examples of tropes, regardless of their merit or literary value or whatever, is that we get to see the full range of effectiveness or ineffectiveness of storytelling tools. Like, this is how you see what makes one book good and another book crappy. Tropes are tools, and when you observe how a master craftsman uses a tool versus a novice, you can break down not only what the tool is most effective for, but how it is best used. In fact, there are trope pages devoted to what happens when storytelling tools just unilaterally fail, e.g., Nom is when creators intend something to be frightening, but audiences find it hilarious instead. This is actually getting kind of interesting. How are you feeling, Gus?
Yeah, I think that this is pretty important to touch upon, because have you ever encountered people in life that, like, you're talking about, like, stories with them, and, like, when you're talking about something that maybe they don't think is that good, and you're like, well, it's pretty similar to this, and then you bring up like a popular or like a renowned critically acclaimed thing, and they're like, you did not just compare X to Y, when there is a similarity there, but they're just like kind of like, well, one's good and one's bad. We know this from the get-go, so where's the conversation? This point is really insightful to be like breaking down the mental walls between like the good and the bad, and just seeing the gears and how they're used is so important. Because if people can't like separate like things that are like untouchable, unassailable, like legendary works that are super good from like the trashy bad stuff, then they're not going to know what elements of any of the middle stuff could be done better or worse.
Yeah, like they said, I think the tool metaphor is really useful, because someone who is like a seasoned carpenter with a set of woodworking tools is obviously going to make a better, like a chair than the exact same tools in the hands of a novice, but neither could make a chair without the tools.
Exactly.
And if you want a more specific version of this, by the way, people watching this, go check out our video on Squid Game where we discuss how, like, it has a lot of the stock tropes of different death game things like Saw, Danganronpa, Kaiji, things like that, but how its execution makes it a unique piece of work despite employing the same genre tropes.
Exactly, yeah. I think so far this is pretty good, honestly. What's the next bullet point?
2 bullet points left. On that note, TV Tropes is also great in that its analysis of stories is very grounded in authors, audiences, and cultures. It's not solely focused on in-story elements. A lot of the trope pages are categories for audience responses to tropes, or for real-world occurrences that affected the storytelling, or just the human failings that creep into storytelling and affect it. Early installment weirdness. There are categories for censorship-driven storytelling decisions. There are lineages of tropes that show how storytelling has changed over time, and how audience responses change as culture changes. Tropes like Draco in leather pants or Nam are catalogued because the audience reaction to a story is is as much a part of that story, the story of that story, as the canon. Like, storytelling is inextricable from its context. It's inextricable from how big the writer's budget was, and how accepted of homophobia the audience was, and what was acceptable to be shown on film at that time. Tropes beget other tropes. One trope is exchanged for another. They are all linked. A dead horse trope becomes an undead horse trope, and sometimes it was a dead unicorn trope all along. What was this work responding to? And all works are responding to something, whether they know it or not.
Oh man. Okay, this is great because so far this has been a very
That's the
thorough
end.
thesis.
That's the last bit. So that's their
That's
mic
the
drop.
last bit?
Yeah.
Oh my god. No, they did it because really what all of this is saying is that TV tropes is a good resource for getting into the nitty-gritty of storytellings. It's maybe not the only route to that, but looking at TV tropes and exploring the pages of all these different works, it's way better. You absorb way more knowledge of the inner workings of stories than if you just watch a lot of things without critically thinking about them.
Yeah. Exactly. And frankly, I honestly, looking at this now, it's made me realize, yeah, in this regard, my time on TV tropes has in some way, I think, helped me shore up these elements, perhaps without even realizing it was happening.
Exactly. Like I think that maybe preemptively I thought that this was going to be about how the tropes themselves, but no, as a resource, as a wiki for story pieces, this is all so very true. And you think of so many people who they think that they're analyzing stories deeply without taking into account all these the social implications of it, or the thematic stuff, or its common elements to other things, what it might be referencing, its genre. There's so many people that don't understand that genre exists, from the people on our Squid Game video who think that it's a clone of Kaiji, to the people on my Castlevania video who think it's cloning Berserk instead of homaging it in a very obvious way. And you look at the people behind, the animators of Castlevania and the scriptwriter of Squid Game, and both will say that they were influenced by this other work. So it's this massive comprehensive thing that if you don't have some route into looking at the actual pieces of stories, you either pick up this stuff from internet osmosis and YouTube, or you create a completely of its own from the ground up aberration of a critical lens that stems entirely from your own emotions, but since you've given it all different names, you no longer know what's you and what's your weird approach.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. And at the end of the day, knowing more about other pieces of art, what unites them, what makes them different, the context of certain tropes and why they exist, etc., everything that was just brought up in that post, at the end of the day, it's never going to make you a worse writer.
Exactly. A more context, just in life, knowing more context and looking for more context and identifying the thought patterns in yourself that are you looking for what is the truth here, what is what's going on. That stuff is really good, because if you have bad patterns in that regard, you just believe whatever's the most convenient to you, or whatever makes you feel a certain way, instead of actually thinking what are these things actually made of?
Yeah.
What is the world made of? What are ideas made of?
Exactly.
Honestly, I have to say, Tumblr kind of knocked it out of the park here. This was some really good and varied writing advice.
Yeah.
And I think even if people didn't like all of the ones that were presented here, there's got to be one of the things in this list that's going to be useful to them.
Yeah, exactly. And I think to close it out, my theory on that is, obviously, there's going to be bad writing advice on Tumblr out there if you look hard enough. But it also, I don't think it's constructive for people who want to learn more about their craft to purely judge things by its worst advice. I would say more looking and comparing the quality of the very best advice. And the thing is, regardless of what you think about Tumblr, and let's be honest, a lot of people who don't like Tumblr have never set foot there, are just regurgitating opinions other people have given them. Anyone who, like, wants to cite a specific example of, like, oh, this is why Tumblr is bad, go check out Sarah Z's video on Opa Homeless Style and realize that so many of some of the most, like, iconic, like, dumb Tumblr posts, especially the ones that are, like, haha, stupid SJWs type shit, were proven to be photoshopped for a subreddit for people laughing on Tumblr. Stuff like that happened. And things like that. Which is insane, so go check that out. Like, a lot of this stuff is literally falsified. But, point is, the reason I think you get some genuinely fantastic advice on Tumblr is that if you are on Tumblr in the year of our Lord 2021, despite all of the website itself's horrendous attempts to clear off all of its core demographics, banning porn in a way that fucks over, like, sex workers and queer people, to impossible, hideous UIs and arbitrary changes and no, like, content-serving algorithm. If you are on Tumblr these days, it's because you care deeply about something. And frankly, unless what you care deeply about is, like, racism or child porn, I respect you for it.
Yeah, and, like, you know, people who care about things and are writers typically have works that are full of their passion. And I think that's something good. Like, there's a lot of passion on Tumblr, and it also has been a home for a lot of people who have, like, written fan fictions throughout the time. So, like, who is more likely to listen to? Some people who never write in some corner of the internet, or a community of people that, despite everything, care a lot about things and are genuinely creative, and that's why they're there.
Yeah, exactly. Also, on a purely selfish level, I think a lot of, like, Tumblr cringe has died off, and these days, a lot of people who click on videos like this are, like, Tumblr users or, like, ex-Tumblr users who feel kind of nostalgic about the site. If that applies to you and you've enjoyed this video, definitely go check out Less is More, because it's weird and queer and you'll probably enjoy it. Hope we've extended the olive branch to you.
Exactly. And if you're, like, a person who, like, you know, wanted Tumblr cringe so badly and you watch till the end of this video, you've fallen into the same trap as, like, these shows get bad at hour 1.
Yeah.
It goes
you
all
gave
the
us
way
watch
through.
time, you dumb son of a bitch. Comment, I'm a big poopy head and I got fooled.
Congratulations, your sunk cost fallacy is the only thing your brain can process now. Have fun with the knowledge that you're just this sad, miserable sack of shit who will sit there watching something that you should rightfully throw against the wall and or click off of. But no, you'll just keep watching, and you'll let me berate you because now that's your fetish.
Thanks for that hour of your life, bitch. Bye!
Bye!